on Talking Pints, and we've certainly got one today for you, because joining me now is Adrian Hayes, a British record-breaking adventurer and author. Adrian, welcome to Talking Pints.
Nigel, cheers.
Cheers, very good to see you. Now, I know you've made a few documentaries and things, but a lot of people, despite the things that you've done, a lot of people might not know what your achievements have been. So let's just get this straight. You were an army officer, did a bit of time in special forces, and this obviously gave you a taste for adventure.
Yeah, although I started when I left school at 16, to be honest. I left
school at 16?
5 GCSEs, one was art, one was RE, and just went travelling the world for 7 years.
So you're a dropout, really?
Yes, I think let's call it that now. I took a year out, which lasted about 7, and then thought, and I was farming around the world and things and doing skydive venturing. And I thought, there's an organisation pays you to do this. It's called the British Army. So then I joined 2-1 SS and then joined the Gurkhas. So I went to Sandhurst and somehow got through Sandhurst with my 5 GCSEs. And
getting into Sandhurst without academic qualifications now, I thought it's quite difficult, isn't it?
It is now. I think probably odd bods, off-piece people like me probably wouldn't get in. But yeah, got there, then joined the brigade and had a fantastic 9 years. I mean, absolutely marvellous. They're fantastic troops, and the camaraderie, the cohesion we still got today is quite incredible. How
do you feel about the guys that served and thousands of amputees from Afghanistan, Iraq?
Yeah.
How are these guys feeling at the moment?
Look, it's a tricky thing. It's a very sensitive issue, because I always say, look, whatever we do in any policy, there's choice and consequences. There's always going to be... When Joanna Lumley... fantastic campaign to bring Gurkha pensioners here, but of course, we then had pensioners in their 70s arrive at Heathrow Airport with nothing. And, and so this is the sort of... You've got to weigh up everything when you take these decisions.
Yeah. But the extreme adventure... So just give the audience an idea of the... Fairly extraordinary. I know what they are, but share with us where you've been.
I'm feeling embarrassed now. But no, look, it's just a few long camping trips. So I've been mountaineering since I was about 17, 16, when I left out, so 16.
So Everest?
Yeah.
How was that? Easy to...
It was pretty hard, it's pretty hard. But it was superseded by K2, which was just 6 years.
That really is the tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's far tougher, far steeper, far more dangerous, and the numbers speak for themselves. Very few people get up K2, whereas thousands now get up Everest.
It's a massive tourist thing, isn't it?
Well, and this is, I was hoping you'd ask me how's the adventure going today, but also the poles. I trekked to both poles, and the length of Greenland. The length of Greenland is probably the proudest thing I've ever done. The North Pole is the hardest thing on this planet, and it's never done now. It's not been done from the Russian side for about 12 years and Canada side for about 7 years, because the ice is just too thin. So, it's an extreme... It got down about -60. I mean, we talk about climate change global. It got pretty cold and pretty horrendous, actually.
And so Antarctica, I've visions in my mind of Scott and Shackleton, and it looks to be, so bleak it's almost unbelievable.
Do you know what? Everyone who goes to Antarctic South Pole, it touches them. It's the most amazing place I've ever been in the world, full stop, period. And because humans haven't spoiled it. And it really does. I've been a couple of times. I wanted to join the British Antarctic Survey when I was 16 and 17, but it took me about 25 years to get back there. But amazing place. I always say to everyone, if you've got a chance, just go down on a cruise ship. It's quite incredible.
And a lot of people, a lot of adventurers and explorers and people like you, a lot of them have... they've lost fingers through frostbite and goodness knows what. Have you come through all of this relatively unscathed?
I can assure you all 21 digits are intact and in full record. But no...
It's a very army answer.
I had a bit of frostbite in my nose, a bit of frostbite. But, you've got to look after yourself. It's the classic, passage in the event of oxygen decompression. Look after yourself, then look after others. So you've got to take care of your own personal... fitness and health and hygiene.
And are you still doing these crazy things?
Well, actually, I had to put it on hold 4 years ago. And I was living in Dubai for quite a few years. I was selling Airbuses and various things out there. Actually, but I've been, my own company for 15 years.
You've been a businessman as well.
Yeah. But I came back to bring up my teenage daughter. And I've got to mention Charlotte, which is probably harder than climbing Everest, K2 and walking to the North Pole put together. That's why I'm looking so stressed. I didn't have grey hair before I did this.
But we understand the motivations of wanting to bring up children well. But what are the motivations? What is it that drives people to want to go to the poles, to want to climb K2? What is it? We all like little challenges in life. What is it that pushes you to say, right, I'm going to cast aside everything else for months at a time.
Yeah.
Family, business advancement. I mean, it's you're making quite a big sacrifice in many ways to go and do these things.
Yeah, and I
drives?
wrote it, and I think, look, to be honest, and with due respect to anyone who's done this, that you don't climb Everest to show others that they too can achieve their dreams. You don't walk to the North Pole to raise awareness of climate change. You don't row across the Atlantic to raise money for an orphanage in Kenya. If you're really passionate about things, go and become a coach, a scientist, or go and work in the orphanage. You do it for yourself. And there's nothing wrong. You do it for your internal significance. But what has changed, and even the last 4 years, I know COVID has put everything on hold, but what I'm finding now, it's becoming more and more about this. It's becoming, and the mountain is just tip of the iceberg. We've got this subconscious need to show our worthiness, the selfies on social media. And
that's not for us, is it? Or is it? Is it us? It's us. It's not for our own inner sense of well-being.
It's the external recognition, respect, and I'm going to use the F word, the fame word, and I think, and the pressure of these things. When I do a lot of speaking to schools, and the mental health crisis we've got in Simone Biles on the Olympics, she was on Twitter every single day. I say the biggest thing you can do is stop living your life on social media, because the pressure we feel to do these things. So this is what I'm cautious about what the adventuring world is coming. I think we're going to be, a few years' time, we're going to be spending as much time avoiding drones as we are avalanches, because everyone's got their drone footage and posting these updates. Yeah, so the next trip I do will be no social media, just go for the escape, the setting the goal, and really breathe the air and really just enjoy the mountain.
Now, you made a comment a moment ago about the North Pole and about the ice, and saying the ice is far less stable, and you believe thinner than it was a few years ago. We can call that climate change, we can call it many, many things, but you feel yourself that you have witnessed significant changes going on?
Yeah, look, more than pretty anyone looking at the show, or pretty much anyone in Britain, I've witnessed climate change. I got very wet in the process of ice walking to the North Pole, which is now about 1 metre thick. It used to be 5 metres thick. I worked with Denmark's top ice scientist on our Greenland vertical crossing. I took ice core samples and everything. So I know a lot about the subject. However...
But Antarctica... We've seen some different ice.
Yeah, on East Antarctica.
In fact, we've actually seen ice moving further northwards over the last decade. In some parts.
The modelling, as we well know on some other things, isn't always accurate. So I know it's happening. I believe it's happening. Where I'm cautious is that I'm going to go on a rant now. I'm going to... Is climate change...
People, over a drink, people do want to have a bit of a rant.
Have a drink before it.
Please have a sip.
But the thing is, where I get a problem, the problem with climate change activism is it's all about climate. And what I say is climate change didn't cause carbon dioxide emissions to reach 420 parts per million. It didn't cause sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, ground level ozone, particle pollution. It didn't cause the toxic waste, the chemicals, the pesticides in our rivers, our lakes, our seas, our ocean, depleting fish stocks. It didn't cause the depletion of our forests, the rainforest, the grasslands for biomass, for palm oil, for development, for everything, and so on, so on, so on, so on. Climate change didn't cause that. And yet we're taking that it's the only threat that we face in the world.
That's right. Do you know what? I've said this so many times. We focus obsessively on carbon dioxide, and we've forgotten so many other things that are going on. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
But I bet you've been called a denier for saying that.
No. I say, look, I acknowledge, and I've witnessed it, but I say this single risk, climate change, single issue, carbon dioxide, single remedy, zero carbon, I think is rather naive.
Solve the other problems.
It doesn't solve. Take the rainforest for starters. Yeah. The amount of the size of the UK every year is being destroyed, okay? And that is the lungs, everywhere, every environmentalist will agree, this is the lungs of the earth, and yet we're destroying this. Now, carbon, zero carbon, everything, big tech can praise all they want, virtue signalling about we're doing this. What's going to happen without all that production for what we need? And the two things that come down to it is our increasing consumption, A, and B, the increasing numbers of us consuming.
Isn't that really the point?
Well, and this is where we get into problem, because many environmentalists will say that, or that's being distracted. They're all gone on climate. They refuse to mention this one. What I say to them, look, I get you. The Mongolian shepherd is not causing anywhere near the consumption that we do in the developed world. However, you cannot add 80 million people, the size of the population of Germany, to the Earth's population every year without there being impact.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think when I was born, there were about 2.5 billion people in the world. I think we're now pushing 8 billion, aren't we?
Yeah.
So what do we do?
Well, this is where I think...
I mean, you know, I agree with you that it is the massive increase in people and consumption that has led to a whole host of problems. But identifying a problem is one thing. But is there anything we can do?
Well, this is what I like to be a bit positive. You have Professor Carol Sikora on the show a few times. I mean, he's the positive professor.
He's brilliant.
He's brilliant. There are ways, but I said we've got to get off this single risk, single issue, single remedy. And dare I say it, in COVID, it was COVID, infections, lockdowns. That's it. You know, so we've got the same thing.
So we ignored undiagnosed cancer, etc., etc.
It's the same.
So it's a very similar principle, isn't it?
So what I'd like to say first is you've got to have a clear objective. I mean, the UN, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, 17, they are a load of hot air. You know, good health and hygiene. Well, that's not a clear goal. I would like to grab the WHO, the UN, and the Cabinet and give them an objective lesson, a whole morning on objective setting for starters. Tech can help. Look, anything from painting our roofs white to carbon capture to nuclear power. Again, the environmentalists, nuclear. I'm working with the leadership team of the Rolls-Royce SMR, which is about to sort of launch. You know, this is what we need. You cannot keep tech, because no matter how much tech can never keep pace of our increasing demand for resources. But the best thing in the developed world, I'm finding positives. We're becoming more realising that stuff doesn't make us happy. And, you know, I was at the rock climbing wall Tuesday night. There was hundreds of young people in their teens and 20s. We've discovered the art of picnics, which would have been forgotten since we were kids. 14 of us went to the pub Friday night. Coffee shops are booming. And I think we're realising that stuff doesn't make us happy. In the developing world, I'm a patron of Population Matters and Chase Africa. It's not rich Western countries telling African people not to have children. They are crying out for family planning aid, the women of Eastern Africa. And I think one thing, if we can reduce child mortality, it would reduce the desire to have more children. If we'd spent 5% of the money we have spent on lockdowns on reducing child mortality and all the other diseases in Africa, you'd be on to a winning
and
win-win
situation. Genuinely think that if it's a difficult subject, this I know, but if we reduce child mortality in Africa, that they genuinely would have fewer children?
A whole combination of things, which comes back to the sustainability argument. You know, people, planet, profit, and that's that whole, which, you know, I'm ambassador on sustainability, economic growth, society, environment. You've got to put them all together. Family planning aid, child mortality, all the other diseases, empowerment of women, education of women. It's not us, not Chase Africa doing it. It's the women of East Africa begging for the help.
And what about the women and the men living in this country who have listened to what you've had to say and say, yeah, actually, this is a much more balanced, rounded argument, rather than the hysteria we get from Extinction Rebellion, which is all about CO2. What can they do? Are there any little things they can do?
In this country, I just realised that buying stuff doesn't make you happy. You know,
Yeah.
and every study is about your relationships. I'm feeling quite positive that we're having a changing sort of evolution of these things. And you know, just realise, I say, the sustainability argument, that the three pillars, economy, society and environment, they're all linked. What we do in one will affect all three, and we can't solve problems in one without looking at all three together.
Well, you've gone from being a school dropout to a soldier to an extreme adventurer to being somewhat of a philosopher about the world and its future.
Yeah, look, I'm as passionate about the world as your dreadlock Extinction Rebellion protesters just down the street. And look, fair play them. But I think it's a slight naivety. As I said right at the beginning of the show, everything we do is a trade-off. And I wish politicians would get this right. There's no free money tree. There's no magic wand. What we do will have an effect somewhere. Be honest with people. So if you put all this money, I mean, Bjorn Lomborg of the Copenhagen Consensus, he says this money, trillions of dollars that we're putting into zero carbon, could be better used for technology. Yeah. There's various ways and means.
There's no magic money tree. That comes from our philosopher this evening, Adrian Hayes, my guest on Talking Pints. And thank you for being here.